welcome Mr. Josh Tetrick.
This has been the question that has obsessed me for the last 5 years. What does it look like if we just start over? Peter talked about it a little bit. I think starting over gives us an ability to remove the preconceptions and the habits and some of the crap that's in our mind. It gives us the ability to start with a clean slate. It gives us the ability in all sorts of things in our personal life, maybe our relationships with our mom, our brother, our girlfriend, our communities, our families, to focus on what we want instead of what we feel constrained by, instead of what we feel victimized by. I want you to ask and answer this question with me today. What does it look like if we just start over? Now, you can ask this question about big systems too. After all, that's what this is about. It's about looking at the biggest problems in the world and understanding how these big systems don't have to be this way. Education doesn't have to be about just memorizing things. We can teach people how to think. Healthcare doesn't just have to be about treating the illness. It can be about preventing it in the first place. And food, a system that obsesses me. Food, a system that is very deeply immersed in our lives. Food, this system that affects us at least once a day, maybe 3 times a day, is so broken that it requires asking this question with boldness and answering it with a little humanity and a little bit of exponential thinking. So I want us today to think about this food system. This food system today that sees a few big things happening. Number one, you got 1 billion people around this world that are not even eating. They go to bed hungry every single night. You got 2.1 billion people in this world that suffer from micronutrient deficiencies. This means they're eating, but they're not eating in a way that allows them to think. They're not eating in a way that allows them to develop. They're not eating in a way that allows them to be empowered and even listen to speakers on this stage. I met some of those kids. I spent time in Monrovia, Liberia. Some of the smartest kids in the world couldn't even think properly because they were deficient in these micronutrients. Now, the food system isn't just about those who are not eating or those who are micronutrient deficient. It also is affecting you, probably in ways that you don't even realize. Because out of the 7.1 billion people that live on this little planet, 6.5 billion of us, including every single solitary person in this audience, are eating in a way that violates your deepest values, and you don't even know it. We're eating in a way that degrades the environment. We're eating in a way that degrades our body, spiking type 2 diabetes and obesity. We're eating in a way that doesn't reflect who we are. Remember, ask this question. What does it look like if we start over? I think if we start over in this crazy food system, we figure out a way to make who we are the right sustainable choice, the choice that is so radically better. We figure out a way to make the right sustainable choice so delicious, so delectable, so affordable, that even if you don't care, you still eat it. That's what system change is about. Now, this big food system, this big, gnarly, ugly food system that we're a part of is complex. And it's important, if you're going to address it, you got to unpack it. So I'm going to unpack one significant and really odd and perverse element of the food system for you. That element is called animal farming. Animal farming is defined by the 10 billion animals every single year that live behind the walls of factory farms, suffering from the cruelest and most inhumane punishment. Animal farming is every piece of duck, every piece of chicken, every piece of fish that we eat. Now, one element of animal farming that might surprise you, because we got to focus on something in order to solve this problem, is egg production. And I'm going to dive deep into the world of egg production to give us a template to think about starting over, to give us a template to take the next step on fixing this food system. Now, it might surprise you that 1.8 trillion eggs are laid every single year around the world. Think about that number. 1.8 trillion eggs. There are just 7.1 billion people on the planet. Those 1.8 trillion eggs are laid by 38.5 billion chickens. Those chickens in every single cage lay on average 282 eggs per year. And about a third of all of those eggs, you don't eat as scrambled eggs or as omelets. About a third of all those eggs you eat when you have a biscuit or a cookie or a piece of cake. You have when you have a sauce or a dressing. They're ingredients in food products. Now, egg production is more than the insanity of the numbers. It's also in the reality of the conditions. So in this audience here, we have north of 2,000 people. And I want you to imagine, if you will, just for a moment, that you're an egg-laying hen. Except you would need to put one more person next to you in between the person on the right or left that you're sitting next to. We need to put a little cage around you, and we need to keep you there for about 2 years. And then we need to add another 4 or 5 people next to you, in a space so small you can't even flap your wings. And we need to load you up with more antibiotics than we give sick human beings. We would need to feed you more corn and feed than we give the 1 billion people who go to bed hungry every single night. Remember that question? What would it look like if we just started over? Now, 99% of all of the chicken eggs eaten anywhere around the world, whether in Beijing or Birmingham, Alabama, where I was raised, come from facilities that look like this. I didn't know it. You didn't know it. But cruelty in this world often thrives on abstraction, the abstraction of a cookie, because this egg enables it to rise. The abstraction of a cake that it binds together. The abstraction of enjoying scrambled egg or omelets with your family, not realizing that with every bite, you're unknowingly, unconsciously contributing to this. Now, this crazy system gets even crazier when you unpack it a little bit, because we got to start over from the very first step. It turns out that every single one of those chickens in every one of those cages, right, the north of 30 billion chickens around the world, has to originate from somewhere, and they originate in places called hatcheries. There are thousands of these hatcheries all across the world, and I want you to imagine you're in a hatchery, and you're a person called a sexter. One of these women. That's actually their name. And all they do every single day is look at tens of thousands of eggs, and they watch them hatch. And they check the chick for its sex. The female is going conveyor belt A into that place that you saw. The males go on conveyor belt B. And if you can imagine a worse place than those previous cages, I'm about to show you. Because if conveyor belt B sends those males into one of two places, either a plastic bag in which they're suffocated within about a minute, or a machine called a maturator that just grinds them up. What does it look like if we just start over? What does it look like if we build a food system that reflects who we are? What does it look like if we build a food system that speaks to the children about the kind of community and the kind of world that we believe in? Now, forget about animal cruelty for a second. Let's say you don't care about those chickens and the suffering. After all, human beings are more important than animals, right? Let's say you care about the environment. There are probably a lot of environmentalists in the audience. And let's say you really believe in the science of climate change. Well, here's an astounding fact. Intensive animal agriculture is responsible for more greenhouse gas emissions than all the transportation sources, all the cars, all the trains, all the buses combined. So drive an electric car. I urge you to do that. But also, the next time you eat, think about what your impact is on the environment. The reason it's so astounding from a greenhouse gas emissions perspective is all those chickens in all those cages eat lots of soy and they eat lots of corn. And all that soy and all that corn requires a lot of land and a lot of water and a lot of fertilizer, and that fertilizer requires a lot of oil, a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. To have an omelet, to have a cookie, to have a muffin. Now, starting over means, in some ways, remembering what we forgot. What if the answer to all this has been right in front of us all along? What if the answer to this isn't in synthetic biology? What if it's not in genetic manipulation? What if the answer to this problem, to this values problem, to this ethical problem, to this nutritional problem are plants, seeds? It turns out there are a lot of them. There are about 400,000 plant species all around the world, 400,000 of them. And the complexity, the exponential complexity and potential of these plant species is astounding. It turns out in these 450,000 species, only about 8% have ever been explored for how they can make food better, for how they can make that muffin better, or that soup better, or that piece of chicken, or that chicken egg better. It turns out in the complexity of all these plants, just one of them, you'll find 40,000 plus different kinds of proteins. Lots of different lipids, lots of different polysaccharides, but we haven't explored them. We've gotten addicted to soy, we've gotten addicted to corn, but we haven't gotten addicted to discovery. And it's time to get addicted to that. It's time to realize that we can build the biggest discovery platform in the world. It's time to realize we can feed ourselves without the ethical consequences all at the same time. We can screen through all these plants, ultimately select the best of them, and use them to make all sorts of different food products a lot better. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that later on. Now, screening through all these plants is a challenge because there are a lot of them. My company, Hampton Creek, first engaged in this mission of screening all the world's plants to make food radically better than the current state of affairs. And when we first did it, we had a whole bunch of scientists doing it manually. We would take one plant species, we would look at its molecular properties, the molecular weight of the protein, surface protein hydrophobicity. We would look at its functionalities. Does it cause a cake to rise? Does it gel in a pan? Does it taste good? Can we use these plants without manipulating them? Because we don't want to create synthesized food. We want to create better, natural food to make the food system so much better. So we have a team of scientists that has built really the first discovery platform for food. We're screening through these plants, not with our hands, but with robots. We talked about one of the exponential technologies out there, automation, robotics. We use robotics to remember what we forgot. We use robotics to screen through all of these plants out there, and we build a platform that enables first us to do it, and I'm going to show you how that works, and then maybe more importantly than that, it's going to allow the rest of the world to do it too. Now, remember those eggs. Remember that question. What does it look like if we just start over? Well, let's imagine this discovery platform that's made up of all these plants we've discovered, that we want to find plants that are superior to those chicken eggs. We want to find plants that have all the functionalities of eggs, and it turns out eggs can do a lot. They do 22 different things. Aerating and gelling and binding and freezing and thawing and flavor release. But we have to figure out a way to find plants use less water and less land to do the same things even better. So we select eggs. We decide that we have certain requirements for this plant-based egg. We want it to be heat stable because we can't have it evaporate when heat touches it. We want it to be able to freeze properly. We want it in a liquid format. And also, very importantly, we want it to be rich in nutrients. We want it to be rich in micronutrients, rich in macronutrients. We want it to have protein, but not just the same amount of protein as a chicken egg, but 25% more protein. And we don't want it to just be the same price. We want it to be more affordable. And we decided, since figuring out a way to empower rural farmers in areas of East Asia is so important to dynamic human livelihoods, that we want to source these plants, these seeds, from East Asia. And that's what we did. And this is our database. I'm letting you into it. Some of our discoveries. From taking a look at all these plants, you can see some that we've identified. That's one protein isolate and another, all from different species. And it turns out there's one particular protein that we've identified. One magic bean, we call it, that is rich in all of this. Rich in functionality. Rich in protein. And it's one thing to show a picture of this plant that we've identified that when you throw it in a pan, scrambles up with 25% more protein with better taste. And it's another thing to do it in front of you on a live stage in front of this audience and 4 million people. So we decided, what the hell, life is short. We're going to do it. So with that, I want to introduce you to one of the best chefs in America. This is Richie over here. Richie, if you've seen the show, Top Chef, you've seen Richie. Richie is a Michelin star chef, can make the most unbelievable, delectable meals, and he's one of the phenomenal members of our culinary team. Richie, you want to explain a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're making some sandwiches and we're making some eggs. So we're just taking our pan. We're going to take the magic bean you were talking about and actually drop it inside. And what you'll see is that it's going to act just like you scrambled up an egg. You beat it up, you throw it in the pan, it's going to start coagulating around the edges. We're going to start mixing it around.
I'm going to need some audience members to try this too. So if you're interested in trying it, just put your hand up. Richie, we might need a few more.
2,000 portions. Copy that.
We might need a few more samples. This is the first time we've done this on the mainland, and it really is it's a humble thing to be able to do this in front of you. So Richie, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, so it's starting to, all the protein's starting to coagulate and starting to look like an egg as you were scrambled, but being completely plant-based.
Let me make sure it's looking all right before we give it to anyone. All right.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Looking good. Good.
So yeah, essentially, just like an egg, you want to turn it off when it's about a soft scramble. It'll continue to cook, have that nice texture and flavor that you're looking for. And so this is one version we have inside of our pan, and then we have also a patty version that we flavored with a little bit of spinach and peppers. So put a little breakfast sandwiches for our audience to try.
Beautiful. So
yeah,
Richard,
so
you want to
turn it out, so people could kind of see what.
Do you want to start handing out some of those samples?
Yeah, absolutely.
To people? Cool. So I made the mistake one time of attempting to scramble this plant-based egg myself. And I did it in front of this guy. Boy, I hope they like it. Well, let's ask him. You want? So as Richie's passing those out, I made the mistake of attempting to do it myself in front of Li Kai-shing, and I over-scrambled it. I overcooked it, and he made fun of me. So from now on, I just have one of my chefs do it.
And we got one more. There you go. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
we got it.
We're good.
I think even though this wasn't planted, I would love to know. Can one of the folks who took a sandwich? There we go. There's one. Is it good? Pretty good. We got one thumbs up. Well, I think this man should try it right there. He's deciding not to use his hands, just to dunk his face into it. Pretty good? Okay. So what's exciting about what we're doing, it goes far beyond identifying a plant that could be more compelling than a chicken egg. We are building this discovery platform to feed the world. This is what we're building in the future. It's a seed vault. Remember I said there are 400,000 species of plants? We want to look at all of them because we think inside the plant world, without synthesizing, without using GMOs, just from remembering what we forgot, we can do this and do it 10x better and do it in a way that affects almost all of the packaged food categories in the world. This is the seed vault. In order to use something, when we have these seeds, we have to figure out a way to process them. So we have a machine, again, this is all non-GMO, this is not synthetic, this is all very natural, where we purify and we process all these seeds so we can effectively look at the molecular and the functional properties. Really exciting is what we can do with robotics. Listen, we can enable a series of robots to look through the process every single night. We can rip with unbelievable velocity through 256,000 different samples a week, and we can get better and better and better about understanding what's happening on a molecular level and connecting and what's happening on a functional level to be able to really solve this problem. A lot of data is generated too. You know, we hear about indexing the world's information, but how about indexing the world's plants as a way to enable us to feed ourselves better? In the next few years, we're going to be developing these different biospheres because it turns out that a yellow pea grown in Western China actually has different molecular properties than a yellow pea grown in Western Canada. So unless you really reflect the exact growing conditions of these plants, you can't effectively understand which ones work for which application. This discovery superstructure, I'm just so humbled to be a part of a team that is in the process of creating it. We've been at this for a handful of years, and we have some audacious challenges in front of us. Finally, more important than a thumbs up for the plant-based egg patty is a food system that in Beijing, in Birmingham, reflects the kind of people that you are, reflects the kind of people that we are, reflects a world that we believe in, reflects a humanity that believes in integrity, compassion, kindness, because every bite that we take is an expression of who we are, of who we want to be. And I couldn't be more humbled and grateful to be able to share that vision with you. Thank you. This way.